So, hello, Stephen Theophani, Daniel, are you there?
Hello.
Christ is risen.
Truly he is risen.
Albanian, say it for us. Hisunja.
Vertetunjal. Very good, Father.
Can we see you on the screen?
No.
Okay, well, we can hear you. That's the important part. And I want you to be able to see all of us. So I'm going to turn our camera around. You can see all of us at our lovely table.
Okay.
Very good. And so if you want to you have a presentation for us. So
Yeah,
I understand why we can't see. If you are sharing the screen and you're going to share our presentation. So very good. We'll let you take it away.
Sure thing. Yeah, we'll work to resolve the video issue. Sorry about that, everyone.
Let's share our screen, at least to start. Okay. Cool.
Can everyone see this? Father Nick, how are we doing with our presentation? Father, can you see our screen?
They should be showing their screens.
Okay, cool.
Wait a second. I bet you the HDMI froze.
All right, Father, we are ready whenever you are.
Just a second, guys.
Sure.
Okay, no worries.
We don't want to share some.
We don't want to share.
Because they are. That's.
Okay, so let's start sharing it and then give it a minute. Stop share. Yeah.
And then we go on. Oh, you got on one screen now. Okay. I just okay. All right. We're good.
All right. Great.
Awesome.
Great. Well, we're so sorry that we haven't given you some video on us. Father Nick, after our presentation, I'm going to switch devices so that at a bare minimum for a very short period, the group can just see us, which I think is important. But let's continue. So yes, we are coming at you live from Tirana, Albania, the capital, and we'll be brief with our notes, but Theophani and I are one of several families and individuals who work here as OCMC, work and serve in the Church of Albania under Archbishop Anastasios with OCMC. And we have been here for just over a year, so we're still relatively new. But that being said, we participate in different ways here in the church to really do the same work that all of us do as Orthodox Christians worldwide, much of which has been said already by Dan in church. We share the good news on a daily basis in different ways of salvation in Jesus Christ. We share it to the people around us, those that we serve directly in the church, but also on the streets and everywhere we are. And in particular, here in Albania, we strive to strengthen those who know only a little bit about Orthodoxy. Since the fall of communism decades ago, there still are many who are nominal in their faith, and we make different concerted efforts to raise the level of discipleship for those in Albania and those around us. But anyway, so we take part in the sharing the good news. That's the main idea here. So, honey, why don't you talk a little bit about us?
Okay, great. So we, as Steve said, are Steve and Tiffany Serjanis, and I'm just going to show you guys some of the stuff that we have been up to
in pictures
and our journey in pictures. So first, like Steve said, we are here as an example of what it means to live a Christian life. And being a missionary doesn't mean that you run through the streets shoving the Bible down people's throats. You have to accept the culture. You get to know the people.
Learning on the language.
You have to learn the language. And you really have to become one with the people. I think that's what's so great about being here in Albania, is that we have such a great example of Archbishop Anastasios. And he has done that here. And so as you can see in all of our pictures, we have one photo of us with our dog Noah when we first got to Albania. Under that, you have Steve with some of the Ukrainian refugees. Under that is in the altar at the cathedral. There are some photos of us doing work with the young adults, baking prosforo and learning how to do that, because many of the young adults don't necessarily know how, and they want to learn. Usually because it's done by the older generations in the parish, and then they're just brought to the church the day of liturgy. Under that, you have a girl holding the Ukrainian flag from the refugee event, which I'll talk about later. Then there's a group photo with the Albanian flag in the background, where we actually went to, that used to be a church, St. Nicholas Church, and it is the place where they had laid to rest, I believe, Skanderbeg, who is a very national hero, big figure in there in Albania. Under that, we're with some of the young adults. There's a photo of a child who is painting from Steve and I. We teach English, and I also teach catechism to fifth graders. And so that is one of the projects that they recently did for Pascha, where they learned about St. Gregory Palamas. And then we have photos just from our conferences that we did, and the conference that we held one during Christmas time, which is the one that you see in the pictures here
in the upper right corner.
And those were the ones where we were able to talk to them about how Christ overcomes fear, because that's a really big thing now, is people were very afraid to come to church because of COVID. And so it was the first in the
church here, we're saying.
Yeah, and it was the first event that they did since pre-COVID, basically, with the youth. The first conference, I believe it was in 3 or 4 years.
So at a glance, these pictures, they depict for you our ministry primarily, which is to the young adults, ages 18 to 30 here in Tirana. That's what we were commissioned to do by the Archbishop, and that is in essence, our main assignment is to develop and to continue to grow the strength and the faith of the young adults here in Tirana. And as you can see from some of the pictures, even with a large sort of nationwide conference, we also try and lift up others from other areas of the country. So like Theophany said, we also are teachers of English in one of the Orthodox K through 12 schools. So, our Monday through Friday looks a lot like a typical teacher's day. We wake up early to get to school. We have several classes that we offer. Our kids are elementary and middle school age. They can be a handful, not unlike any of the kids at home. They help us learn language skills, because we teach in English, and some of our students need a little Albanian language help to learn this foreign language for them. So anyway, we also devote quite a bit of time to the young adults. So when we're not teaching, we are developing a lesson for the next gathering, or connecting with young adults, maybe going for a coffee, etc., etc. So teaching and young adult ministry are the two areas by which over the last year we have been dedicated to.
But as missionaries, you have to wear many different hats and do many different things. And below the pictures from the conference, you'll see a screenshot from one of the radio shows that I had done. I did it during Pascha with the great themes of Great Lent. And I did that with a translator and another young adult, Anna Barbati. And she is awesome and amazing. And she's been helping us with language as well. But the radio is actually one of the top radio stations in Albania. And it is the only Orthodox radio in Albania. And unlike in America, where we don't necessarily use radio as much unless we're like in our car, the people here thrive off of the radio. And it's a very big resource for the Orthodox Christians here. And it's actually where they have a majority of their archives. So I was really blessed to be able to work with the radio. I took photos during Holy Week with fellow missionary Presbytera Alexandria Ritzi. So that was a lot of fun, very different experience. And I have been commissioned to do some logos. So I made the logo down there by hand for the youth office, Renis Orthodoxe. And it says by Tadritus. And that is kind of the main theme of the young adults.
Yeah. So that's the ministry and the work that we do primarily. So, but we'll show you here a few pictures of Holy Week and Pascha, which coming from the American setting and context is a little bit different. And in particular, because Albania is a majority Muslim country, and because receiving the Paschal light, at the midnight service, at the Annunciation service, is not just for the Orthodox. It's actually it's sort of like a cultural event. Now you'll see the large picture here in this slide. Take a close look. You'll see the Kalimafkia of the archbishops. You won't see their faces, of course, the black long headdress. Now, you'll see a sea of people there. Now, keep in mind that this is the Anastasi. We can't really say how many are Orthodox within that crowd, a good number of them, but there are many who are not. So the witness here, especially on a big day for us Orthodox, our greatest feast, our greatest day, is shared to whatever different extent by so many people of Albania. I mean, there were clear over 1,000 people outside and inside the church for the resurrection service. People are just so desirous to have the Paschal light, even if they don't truly know what that means.
Yeah, and I think what's really important to note about Pascha this year was that it was the first one that they've had since COVID that was quote unquote normal, whatever that term means nowadays. But last year when we were here, we also celebrated Pascha, but it was a very different experience because we still had very many COVID regulations. And we actually were not allowed to have our Anastasi service on Saturday night. We went on Sunday morning and we had the Anastasi service, and then, you get a bite to eat and then you come back for the Agape Vespers. So this was a very different experience. It was a beautiful Pascha to have post-COVID. And like Steve said, there were very many people. To say Christ is risen in Albanian is Krishti Ungjal, if anybody wants to know. So that Krishti is Christ and Ungjal is resurrection. So Christ is risen.
That's also why Radio Unjalya is resurrection radio.
And this picture is not one that I took, the big one, because I'm afraid of heights. And this was taken at the top of the bell tower. But you can see just from this picture how many people came for Pascha. And even looking all the way up in the corner, I'm pointing at it, like you can see where I'm pointing to, but the floods of people just keep going and going and going. And imagine all of these people packing themselves back into the church. So people were in the church, they left the church, there were still people waiting outside of the church. And then after we, talked about the Anastasi, we went back in. And then on the other side are two of our youth, young adults. And the one on the bottom is actually Anna Babati, who helps with the translations.
In closing, if there is time, Dan or Father Nick will let us know if there's time for questions and answers. But in closing, because your parish, and I know your young adults have been pretty active and very giving financially towards the Home of Hope, the children's center here in Albania, we have a small update. I guess we can turn the slide of what became of the project that was assisted with from the parish. So I guess you can offer a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pamela Barksdale asked me to give you guys an update, and it's been really great because we've even done virtual teams with the Home of Hope
And the
children. We've seen the playground, and they're very, very grateful. What's really awesome about the playground is it's not only for the children of the Home of Hope, but also just for the community, for the priests that come with their children. Recently, we had a Paschal celebration with 150 Ukrainian refugees in Albania.
Yeah.
They were welcomed by the Archbishop, and the children were actually able to play with the playground and kind of distract their minds from everything that's going on in Ukraine right now. They also were able to buy trees, and they kind of they lined the back. You can see the trees in some of these pictures, and each child from the Home of Hope wrote their name on a piece of paper, and they put it on the tree, and like that was their tree, and they had to take care of it. And they even were able to get vegetables, and now they are actually eating out of the garden that was provided along with the playground. So I know that the children from the Home of Hope are very, very grateful. We've seen them play on the playground. We've spent time with them since we've been here, and we know that it is something that is being used very well. And we wanted to let you guys know and kind of just say thank you from not only the Home of Hope, but Pamela Barksdale, who is our fellow OCMC missionary.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we'll close. And if there's time for questions, we can take some of those.
Depending on your schedule.
Yes.
So
Faleminderit, as we say in
In
Albanian, or thank you.
it's our joy to be with you all, having some family in the crowd today, and many friends from the parish, as well as Father Andrew and Father Nick and their families. So we appreciate being with you.
Say again.
Okay, very good. So so there you go. Let's find that next one. Okay, so again, Stephen Delphine, you're coming to your live. What time is it over there, first of all?
It is 6:30 in the evening.
6:30 in the evening. So we are not having coffee hour.
Very good. So does anyone have any questions for Stephen Delphine about anything? Oh, yes.
Uh-oh, hold on. I will.
Anything they're doing, anything they've done, what it's like to be a missionary in a foreign country?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Hi, this is Carol Evangeline, OCMC ambassador. I just want to say thank you so much for being here today and for the update of the former Hope playground, just brought tears to my eyes. Having been there a dozen years ago, it was amazing to see. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
Our apologies.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And give our love to Pamela.
We will, for sure.
For sure.
Beautiful things, and I know that you just come off of a YAL presentation just over the weekend. What is that like for that age group? What are you working on with them?
So just today even, we had one of our, I want to say, typical post-liturgy gatherings with the youth. It's a university age primarily. We do have those in their 20s and those in their 30s too. What it'll look like in some regards is not too dissimilar to the young adult group. I'm sure that meets however regularly at your parish and also others throughout the states. This is a capital city, and we operate mostly out of the cathedral center. There's a particular room that the young adults have. So today we had a sort of a warm hour and a half of fellowship. Theophany and I offered, an extension of the lesson on the paralytic. We try and keep Sundays rather light. But, throughout the week, we have other events such as Bible study, on Wednesdays. And, again, we have prayer services that are led by us and our staff. So these are the kinds of activities on a regular basis that we have with them, and usually at the Cathedral Center. We also have other events that are outside the city, but I'll hold it for there.
Yeah.
For now.
And we actually are prepping right now to do a second conference post Pascha on being disciples of Christ, becoming fishers of men. And so that is, God willing, going to be on May 28th. And that'll be for all of the youth across Albania. We're looking at about 100, 115 youth. And we keep saying youth, but they're really young adults. It's just the translation difference in Albanian. And it's just been a real joy to get to know the young adults here and to really revitalize them post-COVID. That's the biggest thing with that.
With regard, and just another, with regards to language, our language skills, our Albanian skills are steadily improving. We're definitely not near the, fluency level. We can have some conversation with them, but many of them also will speak English. So we're benefited by the young population's knack for language. The Albanians are very savvy with language. They're very sharp that way. So we kind of cross language all the time, and this is the way that we've forged relationships with many of them thus far. Throughout these different types of gatherings, social, etc., spiritual.
So much, just to add on to that question. So what percentage of those y'all, or those 120 people or so that you see, are their parents Orthodox Christian, or are just the children? I know there's a huge generational miss of Orthodoxy. So I'm wondering, do you find that there are children or young, the youth, as you say, that are going towards Orthodoxy and parents are not?
Yeah, so we have, it's a very good question. So
Great question.
We know of some youth in particular who their parents do not understand why they go to church. And we've had conversations about this when we have discussed with them. The first thing we ever did with them was we taught them about the 10 Commandments and taught a little bit about Exodus. And honoring your mother and your father was a really big discussion, because their parents are saying, why are you going to church? Are you going to these things? And they had questions like, how do I honor my mother and my father and go to church? Like, how do you honor God and honor your parents?
And keep in mind that most of these parents that we're referring to, most are Orthodox. And yet they're still wondering, well, for my daughter, my son, why is the intent so strong to go to the church?
Yeah. But you also have to recognize that a lot of these parents and even grandparents were around during the time of communism. So a lot of the parents were either kids and they remember what it was like to be in a country with no religion, and they remember what their parents went through. On Pascha, when they had their eggs, which they were not allowed to have, you could get killed for having eggs on Pascha. They had to deshell their eggs, and they would put them in rose flower pots so that it looked like petals of the rose. So there are a lot of things that they were not allowed to do, and that they just don't, I think, still grasp now, where, well, why are you going to church? Because they never went to church. They never were able to do that part. And it's still very taboo. And you do have families where the youth, even children, unfortunately, they don't want their kids in their home because they're Muslim and they don't want them to be Orthodox. Typically here in Albania, though, the relationships between Muslims and Orthodox Christians is very peaceful. I think it's one of the top countries that doesn't have a lot of religious conflict, but
Right.
there is still that mentality of, no, you can't go to church, or no, you cannot be in my house if you choose to do this.
We also know several young adults and university students whose parents are, let's say, Bektashi Muslim or mainline Muslim, and they made their own choice to enter the church. We've met several individuals who have made that choice freely from different reasons. But it is interesting because it's not homogenous like that. There are a lot of mixed families between the religions.
Yeah, and I just have two more examples, and then we can move on to the next question if there's still time. But I teach fifth grade, what we would call catechism. They call it spiritual journey here in Albania, and I have students in my class who want to learn about God, but they're not Orthodox. Mind you, this is the Orthodox Church, the American Albanian school, private school, and during Great Lent, I told all of my students every Friday there is Akathist. If you want to come at this time, I will be there, because I taught on Fridays. And I had one student in particular, and he started coming every Friday. And by the end of Lent, he had brought 2 friends with him. And I know for a fact his 2 friends are not Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the choice without his parents and came and brought his friends, and they went to go play after church, which for me, I thought was so cool to actually witness, because usually you don't get to see that. And then my other example is when we were doing Bible study, which we're moving now to Sundays, but we did it on Wednesday nights. We had one young adult who would come, who found out through Instagram that we were doing Bible study, came to Bible study, inquired about an Orthodox study Bible, and
Very
has
bright
been
guy.
coming. Very bright, Muslim, goes to work. He was at Holy Week. So there's an interest there. They might not come to the church right away, but usually when people are Muslim and they come, they're trying to get more education behind exactly what Orthodoxy is. So
Right.
being that example is really important, whether you're an English teacher, or you're taking pictures in the church, or you're just ordering a gyro on the street, basically.
Yeah.
Very nice. Does anyone else have another question or two? Anybody? We don't typically have missionaries from Albania with us from Albania communicating with us, so this is a very unique opportunity for us. And if anybody has 1, 2, all right. Next, sir, please identify yourself.
I wasn't there. Hi, my name is Stephen Carr. I'm a convert to Orthodoxy. A long time ago, I got one true faith, my one true love, one package deal. It's a great day. My lucky day. Okay. When you decided to go on a mission, did you choose Albania, or was Albania chosen for you? And if you chose Albania, why that particular place?
Great question. For us, the Christ's call to serve long-term as missionaries, to make that serious commitment and away from home and away from family, he was calling us as individuals. And then once we formed, a friendship, and then a relationship, and then marriage, we continued to feel called together. So when we began the onboarding process with OCMC, we actually had a totally different mindset with regards to where the host country. Part of that was because the man who married us, he's now deceased. It was a Kenyan bishop by the name of
His Grace Athanasio Secunda.
Athanasio Secunda, and so we actually had a strong desire that we felt was God's, kind of urging to serve in Kenya with him. He was accepting missionaries at the time. So I'll let you finish the story, but we originally didn't have any sort of inclination towards Albania initially.
And the way that OCMC works, though, is you can either ask OCMC to place you, so see a need, fill a need, or what OCMC really does prefer is for the missionary to kind of choose their host country and what they think go to a place where they think they'll benefit. Prayerfully, like you said. And our Gubadi actually are our fellow missionaries, Father Stephanos and Alexandria Ritzi. And when we got married, they cracked a joke that there was an apartment available in Albania, and we laughed at them.
We laughed it off.
We literally laughed at them and said, "We're not coming. Sorry, we're going to Kenya because everything's lined up." And then right before we went for our very first kind of like official, "You've made it. Let's talk about your host country." His Grace died, and for me personally, like Steve said, we kind of had found our way to missions on our own. And for me, it was always Africa. There was never anywhere else. And so when His Grace died, it was almost like part of me died. And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Where do I go?
Yeah.
What do I even like it? What do I do?
And for it was hard. It was a sobering message. It was a sobering reminder about whose will it is that we follow.
Yeah. And so, not only were we more what we thought we wanted, what we thought God wanted for us, we were very confused. And so that's really where, we've said this before, we'll say it again, but, you say the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Your will be done, not mine, not Steve's, not your will. And that's really where we finally had to kind of let go and see where God was leading us. And no joke, every conversation we had was about Albania.
Organic, mind you.
Organic. I worked in retail and I was like, oh, what language are you speaking? To customers. Oh, we're speaking Albanian. We're from Albania. Okay, that's weird. Go to the grocery store, and someone would say behind us or something, yeah, we were just in Albania for vacation or something. Literally in the most random places, Albania would come up.
Her father called at one point, unsolicited and unprompted, and not knowing much of the conversation about where we would need to be serving, etc. Says, Archbishop Anastasios, what was it? Archbishop Anastasios, he was quoting something from Archbishop Anastasios about Albania. And we thought, gee, is there a message being delivered here? So again, it took us time to...
A lot of prayer.
So this is perhaps a long way of saying that God was leading us the whole time. We just needed more time to recognize it, to see it.
Yeah. And very much like children, I do this, I'm very guilty of this. When a child says no to a grown-up, usually the grown-up knows better than the child. And we were kind of the children saying no for a really long time.
No doubt.
And it wasn't until we finally said, okay, I'm willing to listen to you. What are you trying to say to me? Give me some advice, that our hearts opened in a way that we didn't think they could be opened.
That was it was undeniable.
And we were able to get excited and really get filled with like the true spirit of mission. And now we're here a little over a year later.
Carrying that forward.
Yeah.
That's a long answer, sorry, but it was not straightforward for us in where we would serve.
So I know that it's been a long day, and I want to thank Steve Delfani for being with us.
Oh.
Thanks for having us, guys. It's nice to be back in the hall.
Yeah.
Also, I want to thank all of you. Two things. One was what Carolyn was mentioning about we do have various projects that get done. All of our missionaries are supposed to have at least one project they have to receive. Also, so you can support those things. If you go to our website, OCMC.org, you can see each missionary. You can see the different projects in which they're involved. You can support the missionaries individually, you can support the projects, or you can just support OCMC in general. Okay? We don't receive any government money. We don't receive other grants. It's all from individuals, parishes, other houses. So we need your help. On your table is a sample brochure, an envelope, some other materials. Please take these. If you haven't had a chance to get these prayerfully consider what you might be able to do, even if you can't right now, keep it in mind. going forward. The needs continue. Our goal is to get more and more missionaries to the field, because really it's about people, okay? And people to people. And so, as I mentioned, a year ago, they were our newest missionaries in the field, but as we sit here this year, we have new families coming and more being prepared. So please keep all of us in your prayers. The bottom line is we can't do any of this work without children. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your love, your prayers. And I would just ask you, just like Stephen Delphine in their own personal journey, be open to God's love on however you can serve. So I'm going to turn it back over to Father Nick, Father Hank, I'm not sure which one, say a closing prayer. I'll hang out up here. So if you want to come up and ask specific questions, I'd love to meet some of you. I know some of you, I know your name, I know your supporters. It'd be nice to meet you in person. Thank you for the sponsors of the luncheon and all the, again, the Flipos, and again, Carolyn for making this happen. Thank you guys for being here, and God bless you. Let's give Dan all of the work that he's doing. And we're so blessed today to be able to have this lens, this window into what it's like for the gospel to be preached to all nations. We hear about these things, we might be able to imagine a little bit, but there is nothing like hearing it firsthand. So Stephen Theophani, Dan, when you speak to us about going to Kenya and hearing the tribal people ecstatic and excited in their worship and taking that light of Christ in your hearts, and so beautifully alluded to her. Theophani and Steve, when you speak about the young adults in Albania and all the trials of the communism and the light of Christ that still continues to shine through each and every challenge, you provide us with a wonderful witness, and we cannot thank you enough. And again, we echo Dan's words of support. There's a website, www.ocmc.org, Orthodox Christian Mission Center.org. Please go on. We know that they have donations where you can contribute monthly. You can give a one-time donation, but a little bit really does go a long way in our support, especially when we're talking about the African nation or some of these other countries that we do give. It really goes a long way for long-time support. Let us rise at this time in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, have mercy on us, O God, according to your mercy, we pray to your mercy. Again, we pray for peace, light, salvation, visitation, for the servants of God, Daniel, for the handmaiden of God, Theophani, and for the servant of God, Syrianos. We ask for you to extend your unseen hand, to embrace them, to strengthen them in their ministry, in which you have called them to preach your gospel to all nations. Furthermore, may their witness here today provide for us a spark and a foundation in which we may prepare the gospel for those who are around us to live the gospel, and to support in which the ways in which they're able the missionary efforts that take place through your hand worldwide. For you are the illumination of our souls and bodies, Christ our God, and to you be glory, to your eternal Father, your all good, life-giving Spirit, now and forever to the ages of ages.
Amen.
Christos Anesti.
Alithos Anesti.
Christ is risen.
Truly he is risen.
Christu, yeah.
Protetum Jao.
I butchered that one. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone. God bless.
Shun falim in there. Thank you. Miro Pashi.
Thank you. Take care.
Miro Pashi.